This is Don Saline, who is our Muppet builder.
That's not where you start.
Don Saline is not a name that you will most likely recognize, but you will most certainly know his work. He doesn't get front billing like Jim Henson or Frank Oz, nor did he receive any awards. But one thing is certain, without him, the Muppets we know and love today would not exist. What I want to do with this video is explore the life of Don Saline and what he did for the Muppets. Don had a brief stint in the acting world in the 50s, but found real purpose in the world of puppets, where he began his career working under Rufus Rose of Howdy Doody fame. After being drafted into the Army and then released in 1953, he began working in stop-motion animation, beginning with an adaptation of Hansel and Gretel. After this, he began to find more work in Hollywood, working on scenes from Tom Thumb and The Time Machine in 1958 and 1960, respectively. Don attended a puppetry convention in 1960 in Detroit, and there he met a one Jim Henson, starting a friendship due to finding someone of a kindred spirit. A few years later, in 1962, Jim needed some help making a puppet, so he contacted Don to come in and assist him. Jim needed 2 dogs made for a Purina commercial, which resulted in the well-known character Ralph the Dog. Jim loved his work so much that he brought him on as his principal Muppet designer and builder. Jim had him working on commercials, early projects, and Muppet design. According to Jim Henson's Designs and Doodles, a book about Muppet design, Don was the inventor of the Muppet look. He was the man responsible for bringing all the wonderful ideas of Jim to life. He truly was the man behind the Muppets. He created Muppets for Sesame Street, The Muppet Show, Emmett Otter, Jug Band Christmas, The Muppet Movie, and many others. He wasn't just a Muppet craftsman, he also created, crafted, and performed. He is credited for creating many of the Muppets and Sesame Street characters, with Ernie and Bert, Grover, Cookie Monster, and Ralph being the most notable. Jim Henson's Design and Doodles tells us that Jim would sketch something, and it was Don that fleshed them out and brought them to life. Michael Frith later described Don in this way. Don had a wonderful way of taking just the most fragmentary doodle and finding in the doodle the essence of the character and building a puppet that gave you back a lot more than you ever knew you'd put into it, and probably a lot more than you ever dreamed of putting into it. Don just wasn't a Muppet creator, he was also pivotal in making all the Muppet presentations go off with a bang. For the La Choy Dragon commercials,
You tell him, baby. I quit.
he was credited with devising a system for this early, full-body character to actually breathe fire. Saline was known to refer to himself as the guardian of the essence of the Muppets, a claim that neither Jim nor Oz disputed. Saline worked with Jim to bring the look that we know as the Muppets to life, using and perfecting techniques that Jim created, known as the Magic Triangle and the Henson Stitch. The Magic Triangle was the way Jim created the Muppet's face. He would have a specific distance between the mouth, nose, and eyes, creating a triangle. Jim Henson explained the importance of eye placement. It would be the last thing Saline would do, and he always wanted me there to make sure it was right for both of us, making sure the eyes had a point of focus, because without that, you had no character, according to Designs and Doodles. The stitch was a way Henson preferred to sew the Muppets together. Jim would pull the cloth as tight as possible to eliminate the appearance of seams or stitches so that they were nearly invisible, which helped create the illusion of stylized reality when characters were filmed in close-ups. This technique, dubbed the Henson Stitch by Saline, does not in fact create a truly invisible seam, but works sufficiently for television purposes, hiding, for example, the seam down the middle of Kermit the Frog's snout, again according to Designs and Doodles. Saline brought his humor to the Muppet office as well, which Jim was glad to have. According to Dave Goles at Muppet Fest, he'd run squibs, little remote control explosions, all over the office. He'd wire one on your desk with a wire going down to the desk leg to a doorbell under Don's desk. He would wait until you were having your coffee. He would just sit there and choose when you would explode. He would just sit there, talking to you, waiting for the moment, and then you went. It would seem his obsession with fire and explosives were not just limited to fantasy. He also ran pranks to make people think they were losing their minds by running pipes into offices, making sure people saw him leave. Then he'd go to the mouthpiece of the tube and start whispering into it. Gold said that these jokes may seem weird, but it's a key part of what the Muppet Show was. Don would never be working on what he was supposed to be working on. That spirit permeated everything that he did, and we caught it. It was all about having fun, and it became very passionate. Sadly, Don would pass in 1978 of a presumed heart attack 1 year before the Muppet movie released. To honor Don, Jim had a bench crafted and placed it at Don's favorite place in Hampstead Heath, the highest point which overlooked the city of London. To add even more honor to Don after Jim passed, they added his name to the bench. To give him one more honor, the final episode of the popular Fraggle Rock was dedicated to Don as well. This further shows the absolute magic of the Muppets. There was no rock star apart from Dr. Teeth. It was a family that worked together, played together, and loved each other. I can think of no greater compliment than Jim's words about Don in the New York Times when he says, "Don was the man most responsible for the look of the Muppets. Don was an integral part of the magic and truly was the man behind the Muppets. But as it seems, genius is taken from us far too early." I'll end this video by recounting a story told by Jocelyn Stevenson, and I'm quoting the wiki directly here. When the production team had been stumped in trying to find a name for the small, industrious creatures of Fraggle Rock, walking on the heath to clear their minds, Stevenson and Henson stopped to sit on Don's bench. Walking on the heath to clear their minds, Stevenson and Henson stopped to sit on Don's bench. And the minute we both touched the wood, we said out loud, simultaneously, "Doozers!" Perfect name. I knew Don would figure out a way to work on this show, said Jim. So we thanked him and went back to work. Thank you, Don, for all you did to make our lives just a little bit more bright. Thanks for watching.
Yes, I'd travel under the sea, but I don't think I'd like to live there. I might stay for a day there if I had my wish, but there's not much to do when your friends are all fish, and an oyster and clam aren't real family, so I don't want to live